Hi guys. Just getting my setup exact here. Welcome. My name is Liesel. I'm going to be showing you how to do this awesome painting here today. I'm doing it on a smaller one because, big canvases take up a lot of space. And I have a mixing palette. I'm going to show you how to mix my colors, but I reuse my paint palettes because I don't like to waste the paint. We know about that. But I have, for this one, I have black and white, which is pretty standard, and then primary colors, primary blue or phthalo blue, primary yellow or bright yellow, and primary red, which is the non-orange kind. If you have premixed colors that you'd like to bring out, so for example, in the painting, I think a premixed color you could probably use is purple. So if I just show you an example of a purple, I have a violet, premixed violet. It looks really dark actually, but I can lighten it up. And even a lighter purple. And whatever else if you want to premix the green or have a green on the side. So I think we can get started. You can pause and take your time throughout this video. We're going to start our painting. Let me just tell you my brushes. So there's so many different brushes you can use. I am starting with this large one. So make sure you dip your brushes in the water. You have your water cup, you have a paper towel, maybe something to drink or snack on. And then for medium brush, I like this bright flat number 4. And then I have a detailed number 4, but I would suggest something smaller for the details of the father son, or you could do like mother son, whatever else you want to do. Okay. So with our large brush, let's just get started. We're going to start with our sky because that's what we need to do first. And in terms of colors, I like to start with the lightest colors. So if you take a little scoop of white, maybe more than just a little scoop. Let's start with a little bit more of a pile. Oh, hi, Astrid. Hi, everybody who's painted with me before. I can't really tell. But anyways, say your highs. And let's start with a bright yellowy color. So just a touch of yellow. That's all we need is just a small little touch of yellow. You can barely see it on this brush. Mix that together. And I'm going to take a little bit more, depending on how yellow you want it to be. It's a soft yellow. Touch of water. I always use water on my brush because I just like the thinning out of the paint. So overall, I have a hill, but I'm not going to put that in yet. But keeping it in mind, you can, for reference, put like a little dot there. It's hard to see with yellow, I know. I know that my hill's going to come up pretty high and then back down. So that means a lot of my bright colors I'm going to put sort of in the middle. See how I'm using the side of my brush? Side of the brush. Getting it pretty random. So when I made this, I didn't particularly place it. I made it kind of random, and then I just blended it out from using other colors. So I just want to wash this off. And one of the next colors we can use is taking a little, not this much red, but just a little dab of your red. And you can get soft peachy cream colors. You can get pink. This is your painting. I like to encourage you guys to just pick the colors that you like. This is just my interpretation of a galaxy sky. I like making galaxies. I've done them a lot. And this is more of a simple version, but also fun and nice and colorful, where a lot of your darker colors are more on the edge. So if I take that, you can just lightly dab, bring it in to some of the yellow, break it up, put a little bit off to the sides. You can even just take a little bit more white and red to give it more of a solid pink look instead of a peach. And I just mostly put that over here. So for blending, if you have any other round brush, you can just take a dry, clean brush and see if you see how I just circle my brush using the side. So I press down. I don't press straight on. Circle, circle, circle. And voila, you get a nice blend. So let's go a little bit closer as we focus on this area. Just dabbing my brushes dry. So I want a little bit less water on my brush now because we have a good base to start from that had a bit of water, and I don't want to add more water onto my brush. I'm just going to dab it more dry so it's pretty damp. And just remember, I'm not rushing you. You have the ability to pause. Some of us are fast painters. Some of us like to take our time. So you decide. So as I go outwards from here, I'm going to come back to yellow later, but I want to start putting in some blues and like purpley colors and maybe some greens, but I do start with blue, and then blue is a good base to change it to green or to change it to purple, right? Because you can go either way. So it's one of those primary colors that's like, yes, we can go either way here. Grab a piece size of blue, and I'm going to take a little touch of water. I'm going to use a lot of this blue, see from this corner, using more a pressing down side of the brush. Don't take too much water because it's going to come off really, really transparent, which is, I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's not going to look as dark when you want it dark. I just have to keep adding more on my brush, touch of water to keep it more consistent. And I get a nice dark spot. And I go all the way down because the hill, as you can see, it's going to come down pretty low. But even though my hill, I might want bigger, I'm actually going to make it, this area, smaller because I can overlap my hill to cover my background instead of the other way around. So I want to go way more. I might even change my mind later. Maybe I want a smaller hill. So that's my reasoning, and that's why you should just do more than you need to be safe. So I have all around, just like the sides, even up here. Top corner. Kind of circle it a little bit. Let it look a bit clouded and kind of streaky. It adds to the movement and texture of the entire painting. Very galaxy-like. Kind of intergalactic. Then leave this brush. You don't need to wash it off. Make sure you use up a lot of your paint. See, it's like pretty much running out of paint. All I'm going to do is take a touch of water, take some of my white here. So this is actually a lot of white. I want to only mix, I only want to make a little bit of a lighter blue. I don't want a super duper light blue. I just want some sort of medium-ish blue. So you can see over here, the blue is lighter. So now, yeah, I think I'm going to go a little bit lighter. There we go. As light as you want. So now I'm just going along the edges of my dark blue. See how those, where it's really choppy here? When I do this and I pick up my darker blue, it blends it out awesomely well. Right? That's a good word. And grab a little bit more. You just start on the edges here, circle it, take a little touch of water if it helps. Go into the dark blue, let it blend out. Close and up into your yellowy color. You know, wrapping around your pink, that's what I did. And start from the edges. Always start in the open areas, and then when you have less paint, you go into your lighter colors here in the middle. So I am just going along the bottoms here. You don't have to. You can bring down more of your pink as well. I'll go back to those colors later, but for now I'm just getting it filled in. And yes, this is available for replay pretty much forever, anytime with the same link. So I'm washing off this brush all the way through, dabbing it dry again. Okay, so there's other things that we can add on top. And I know right now it looks a little silly, but it's going to change. So one of the other colors that I want to put in is a bit of purple and some greens or teal. And then we can go back and touch up on the middle colors to brighten it so it's overlapping. So I'm going to put some purples like around here, some teals, and maybe a little bit of dark blue / black around some of the sides. So with this clean brush, let's start with some purple. I think that'll be fun. So purpley color, touch of water again. Just take a little bit of blue, a little bit more of your blue, and take a nice pea size of red. Maybe just, it looks a bit dark, which is nice if you like the dark purple, or you can just add a little bit of white to it, brighten it up. And this is very blue purple. And I just add a little bit more red. Starting to get a bit more pinky purple, or maybe to a violet that you prefer. See, I'm just starting from the side. Now I have a lot of paint on my brush. If I just do this and I start going in here, it's going to come off really, really thick. So I just dab on the sides, and you can wipe off extra paint if it's still too much. But when you have a little bit less, if you wipe off the extra and you just do the same thing, but just with a little bit of paint, you can put this into overlapping into your pink right now, but a bit softer looking. Kind of do the same technique. I didn't really stray from it. I don't mind going and covering a lot of my pink anyways. Just layering. It's all about kind of layering, getting a base coat to start, and then you can adjust your colors. So that's a bit of purple. Now I just wash this off again. And we can take, maybe you want to take some teal. So what I do is I just take blue to start, and for yellow, you're only taking, see how much less yellow I'm taking? Mix that together. That's really dark. So if you like it really dark, you can actually start at the top and do this, but you can also take a small little piece size of white, and that's really light too, but you can see just how it's looking, how greenish or non-green teal it's looking as well. So it's a bit of teal. And this is something you can put in anywhere you like. This is light, this is dark. I kind of like the more darker colors for more of just a vignette kind of look, a shadowy border kind of going around. So I'm just going to bring this in. I am covering a little, just overlapping this little section here. When it goes in here and you're using a bit less, you can see a little bit more of the brightness on top of your bright colors. Here's a bit of darkness, and I kind of dabbed along because it's very similar to blue. I didn't have to be too super careful with blending. All right. However much you want to put in, putting in a bunch over here. You can have some lightly tapped into your purple for a bit of an overlap, but nothing too crazy because it starts making a lot of brown. But I actually don't mind brownish colors in my sky because it adds, I think, more of a realistic, authentic look. There, here's a bit of some greenish teal. Just washing it off. All right, so now we just have to put in some darkness on the sides for a more of a dark kind of black blue. And then from here, after that, I go back to the center and I touch up my light colors because I know it's really very choppy looking. So wash this off pretty well. Dab it dry. And when you're doing some dark blue, you don't need to run in and start grabbing like black and then start going for it. I like to take a blue and a dot of black to start. So when I say dot of black, there you go. You can't see it. That's how little black there. It's a good safe way to start because when you see when I do this, it's just look how super deep this blue is. And you can put this anywhere you feel like. Maybe you want to put a little bit more into this corner. Yeah, that's kind of what I start with. And on the sides, start placing this kind of wherever you want to. I don't go all the way around too perfectly. I feel like that's a bit too forced. Grabbing some more blue, and you can even take straight blue and do a second coat and you'll see a huge difference. I'm just going to bring it out like almost like you're making a bit of a cloud. See how I'm just circling it, kind of bringing it out kind of like a cloud. Very soft overall. Bring this in as much as you want. Don't forget a touch of water if it's not filling in your gaps super well. More blue, and I'm going to take an extra little dab or two of black. Look at that. It's like almost black looking, but it's just a super dark blue. It's almost black looking. You can, if it looks black to you, it's probably right. But see how I'm just kind of going over my dark sections just a little bit, mostly in this area on the side and on the top corner. Blue, a little touch more of my black. instead of that dot. Just go over top, because while it's still wet, what happens is it blends a little bit easier and it sits on top of it a little nicer, even though it's still pretty black. But it just feels a little bit better as you try to sort of mix it in. So it doesn't feel like you're just painting random blotches of black onto your canvas. When you're happy with some of the things you've been doing, just take a break. It's always got like that awkward stage, which it does right here because we haven't finished the middle. And just wash off your brush because I want to switch brushes. You can use either a medium round or a flat round. I know we all have our preferences on brushes. So we'll do that in just a second. I'm using my flat because I don't mind using the corner. So pressing right here and doing the same thing like we did with our large brush. Whereas a round, you can use the side and do it pretty much the same as well. So as we're putting colors back in, it's really just colors that you want to put in. And even though it's still a bit damp, this is great because it blends a bit. You get some different colors going instead of, too many vibrant colors. Vibrancy is not really something that I'm like very into. It depends on the painting, but you'll notice that a lot of my paintings are more muted and less distracting in color. That's just my preference. So I'm just going back to a bit of a bright yellow. Remember that bright yellow in the beginning? I don't mind if there's a little bit of green in here because it's just going to make a bit of green anyway. See, I'm just putting this in. If I go into more of the bluey green areas, yes, it makes a bit of green. It actually blends out super well. You're just using that, kind of getting some smaller little circles to blend it out. Let me put some over here. Wipe off a little bit of the paint if there's too much, but just blend it out. Try not to make perfect circles throughout. Try to make it look like there's a randomness of a kind of like a nebula type of feel in the sky. You always start from in, go out. You don't start out here and come in here, because what happens is you pick up all the dark stuff and you bring it in here. Whereas if you start in here, all the light stuff stays in here, and then you go out, it blends out and it gets darker and darker and it fades. So that's why we do that. There's still green on here. So if I just start right here, I'm going to put green in right back into the middle. So I'm going to put just some little bit wherever else that I think I need to fill in. So I see a lot of like questionable spots. I'm like, let's just fill it in with some of this color. It's some of this greenish color I happen to make so far from blending my yellow into the blue. So there we go. Now I'm going to wash that off. Well, thanks. Yeah, this painting is going to look great. You just have to trust the process. If you're ever getting frustrated, because I know that sometimes with painting, it's like things don't go exactly how you planned, but you have to think Bob Ross, happy little accidents, change it into something else. Change it into a different color. It doesn't have to be that specific color there. So in the middle here, I mean, if you have certain sections you want to leave alone, just leave it. You don't need to force anything. Keep it how you like it. If you want to go back and put in some pink, great. Go to your light pink and just start from, wherever your awkward spots of the purple are, you can start from there. I like a super light pink because I think that it's easier to work with. You can just start, you can go into some of your yellow. I don't mind touching a bit of the green for a bit of a muddied color because I like the look of it personally. That's how I made this. You go into a little bit of the green, blend it out, kind of circular style. Very abstract shapes where I'm not trying to make a straight line. I'm trying to just very clouded in a way. And when in doubt, add more white. Because when you add more white, it tends to hide spots that you're like, ooh, I don't know if I like that. A little bit more white. Okay, so what other colors do I need to add in? That's pretty much what I did. If I go back to a bit of my yellowy color, maybe I'll just put a little bit down here because I feel like this is kind of empty, needs a bit of a lighter patch of colors. Just along the bottom maybe. Maybe just pop out that brightness one more time. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I think this is done. I don't need to keep playing around with it. If you keep playing around with it, other things happen. So when I make galaxies, I try not to make it exactly like the other one because then that's just, so much effort and stress for what? Just to make it exactly the same. You can have the same type of principle going on where it's like, okay, we have light, and we have some darker colors here. Great. Blend it out however it's convenient for you. Just because you've done dark colors doesn't mean you can't do a second or a third coat. So if you want to touch up onto your green or teal up here again, you can do that. Or maybe some more dark purple. There's lots of things you can do. So if I just go back to a bit of a dark purple, see how much darker it gets now. But I don't want to make you have to do this again if you don't really need to. However, you can keep blending and blending for days until you decide to stop. All right. So now I just wash this off. And what I do is I just start making some stars, but I do it strategically because you've noticed, let's pull this back. You've noticed that in my painting, I've made a moon and like the stars are wrapping around the moon because, that's so whimsical and fun. So let's do something like that. Okay, I do my first layer whenever you're ready. So take your detail brush. I do my first coat of the moon. And you're going, what do you mean first coat? Sometimes when you do your first layer on top of dark colors, it picks up that background. And if you add more paint on top of wet paint, nothing changes. It only gets bigger and bigger, and you have like this big golf ball sitting here. So white paint, a little bit of water. You always need a bit of water when you're using your detailed brush and reload it pretty often. Otherwise, you don't get what you're trying to get. So I just touch of water, and I just kind of twirl my brush in the white paint, nice and pointy on the end. And I actually recommend that you take something circular and trace around it. So I'm going to place that right there. This is my metallic paint, by the way. Isn't that fun? So, there. Trace around about halfway. And now we're just going to make it pretty. So we do this. See, it's already starting to look blue, but I'm just going to keep going with it. That's okay. Don't let it bug you. It's just going to naturally happen. So the trick with this is to take I just washed it off and taking more white paint. Keeping the ends nice and thin and filling in the middle as much to your liking, just dabbing like this. And using your finger to give it more texture. But this is our first coat. So this is not going to be anything like how we want it to be just yet. Okay, so let's let that dry for quite a bit of time. And all I did was just tap with my finger. I just dabbed. And you just tap with your finger to soften the edges. And it starts making that man in the moon effect, that kind of crescent shape. Yeah, somebody's saying they kind of like it like this instead, which personally, I see it. I think it's actually amazing kind of like that. You can see, obviously, the comparison. So if this is your style, then one coat's all you need. The only thing for a second coat you need to do when it's more dry is maybe just do a trim around the very edge and then leave it alone. So there you go. See, happy accident. It's not like I planned to do that. It's just my first coat. I'm like, you know what? It's kind of cool. Now we have to do our stars because when you flick stars afterwards, it gets all over the place. So don't really want to do that. When I use my medium brush, it's washed off, I fully submerge it in my water. I take a little touch of white and I water it down completely. See, it's very watery. Very watery. Fully submerge a couple times, water it down. So it's almost dripping. If you take too much white, I'm warning you, it's going to flick actual full-on paint onto your canvas. And it's going to be very thick. It's going to not have the dotted look. It's going to look very more like lines. Okay. So now I'm going to flick this where I want to. So I had stars for the whimsicalness. It's starting somewhere down here. So I go right down to like the bottom here. Lots of it. Lots of flicking. Water, white paint again. And I'm just going to follow that up and splatter it around the moon. See, it's just going over top of the moon. That's okay because I'm doing another coat. Or maybe not. It's going up that. Oh, you guys can't even see it that well. Okay, let me do some more. You can start seeing a little bit, and maybe I'll have a little splatter up here. There you go. See, there's more coming out this way. Don't worry, we're not just splattering. Okay, so I have a good base coat. So just imagine from a distance how not obvious this is. Look at all that. Awesome. So let's go much closer so I can show you what I've done here. Use your detailed medium brush. Just take the back handle, dip it in white, and now you're making some bigger, more obvious and placing it to where you want to. Stars. I did spend a little bit of time trying to get it really concentrated in the trail going around. So I just put that around, make this nice and soft. And I didn't just do a straight line, avoid that. You want it to have some on the outsides, some trailing out of where things are, but mostly concentrated. We're just about to wrap around the moon. What's great about this is the second time I make it, it's like, I don't know, maybe this one I'm going to prefer the sky better. So there we have that. I didn't put a whole ton of stars here and a whole ton of stars there because the focus was this. And then I washed off my brush. I still am not touching this moon. Just leave it. You never know, maybe you'll end up liking it. Then we can start with the bottom, all of that bottom. All right. So at the bottom, I am going back to my large brush. And it's cleaned off. Yeah, it's mostly clean. You can use water with your brush as usual, just not too much water. Now we're going to make our hill. I'm just trying to think. Now that, see, I warned you, if you do more than you should, it's going to be good. I have to make sure that my hill goes all the way out here. So I'm just trying to think if I want to make this more narrow in like that. I think I'm going to do that really quickly. I didn't even listen to my own advice. I mean, I tried to, but then I just blanked out on that area because my hill is not that wide. I'm just doing a light blue. It's pretty simple. Doesn't clash with too much. It's pretty standard. You can do a light teal instead. There. Now, in terms of color, yes, we're doing a green. Let's start with a basic green and change it up. So I'm going to take a big scoop of yellow. I'm a muted type of person, so muted in colors is what I'm trying to say. And blue. Let's take 2 scoops of yellow, 1 scoop of blue. You get a pretty basic green. And I mix that right over. If I mix over top of like a random color, just a little bit of it, it kind of muddies down. You can also force it to muddy down by adding the tiniest little dot of black. And there we go. I'm going to add in a touch of white. See, just a little touch of. I'm going to take a little bit more yellow and start a little bit more yellowy. Touch of water. So I went pretty high. You can go higher. Maybe you don't want to. I'm just going to go here, bring it down, and just have it go off to the side. Just kind of touch the corner. This one I went a little bit lower down. And what I'm doing is I'm just making sure it's nice and crisp. So just a little bit right there, but also just little flicks, almost like you're making a bit of a grassy look. Just lightly overlap a bit more. You don't have to make it so even because it's grass. It's not a smooth hill. Just going upwards, you're just flicking it up. You're just pressing. You can even use your medium flat one. You can press down and flick it upwards. That's what I'm doing. I'm just pressing down and flicking it up. You can use the full width of it. You can use just the thin part of it. You can do a bit of just a little bit of both. Is kind of what I did. Starting with some dabs. So I'm going to just dab from the top. This is one of my lighter colors. Like that. Bring it down quite a ways before I go to a bit of a darker green. So So when I make a darker green, I'm just taking another scoop of blue and a little scoop of yellow. No more white. Maybe one more scoop of yellow. You can add a little bit of white if it's really dark compared to what you just did. Just add a little bit. And just bring that down, kind of dab. Just flick it upwards. Short little flicks. If you go really long, you have very long grass, and I don't know if you want to do that. You might like it just a little bit shorter overall. More textured that way, I think. Now I'm just taking more blue, a little bit, just about equal parts almost of blue and yellow, and a little small dab of black. Well, that was not a small dab of black. Okay, so we have like a very dark gray kind of green. Then I just go down here, just starting to the next part down, kind of flicking it up. So it's layering over top of, I just love it when that happens. You're just layering it over top of the grass further back. So what we've just done. So it's in front of it. Because of course it is. And I'm just going to take that to the bottom. There. So we have bright to dark, but it's not done. Just do that. Wash off your brush, let it dry for a minute. Let that dry. Pretty much done with the big brush for now, I think. Yeah, I think I'm not going to use it anymore. But this is a good opportunity to just take your detailed brush and some white paint for anybody who wants to do this, but you can just do your second and last coat on your moon. You can just trace around the edge. See, it just gives it more brightness there instead. So that's the thing. That was just the more crescent shape, and leave that bluey color, if you have that bluey color in there, alone. So I'm going to do that today because someone convinced me that it was a good idea in the chat that yes, it's nice that way, which I agree with. So if you just do that, then you have a nice little glow. But also if you just do more white from up here, and you dab, bring it in, and you use your finger to soften it again, that's what you want to do. So a little bit of white, slight little taps, bring it in close to the center. I would say a little bit more watery white is a good idea. So there you go, just a tiny bit closer, but from far away, you know, it has that nice glow type of look. So now one of the next things that I do is put the trees if you want to put trees, you don't have to. I put trees on the side, and then I start putting in the walkway that they're clearly not walking on because they're they're mischievous like that. Anyways, it's always fun to go off the path. So trees, pathway. Let's start with the pathway first, because then while we're doing the trees, it's drying. If you have a premixed brown, go ahead and grab it. Really, all you need to do is take contaminated colors, which is yellow and red. So if you have yellow touching blue or anything like that, just take that. See a big scoop of yellow. It's kind of greenish looking. And I was just about to grab blue because I was thinking of the color green. Anyways, I'm taking an equal parts of red with that. It's going to start making a little bit of a brown tint, more muddied. And what you need to do is just take like a touch or two of black until you're happy. Just little touches of black until you're happy with how brown it is. Take one little pea size of white. If it's too red and you don't like it, add more yellow. See, more yellow. If it's too yellow, kind of greenish, add more red. And if it's not dark enough, add more black. So my pathway, trying to make it look a little bit like it's wrapping around and coming down. So I know that I want it to be pretty wide at the bottom, just a bit softer, so kind of rounded, not a straight stick. So it's like it's wrapping around the hill. And just up there, just let it wrap, a little thin line. That's a good start. Keep it nice and thin, then just gradually gets wider and wider. For me, I went pretty wide, so I had it wide like this down here. So it's a good idea to determine how wide you want to go. Using a generous amount of paint, and then just narrow it up. Keep it going thinner. And it gives it more depth, and it looks like it's much further away. You know, kudos to the parent that's holding their child all the way up this hill. There we go. That's great to hear. So somebody is trying to do Aurora Borealis, which we've done a lot of, and it's so fun to do. I like to do the Milky Way type of look, which is kind of like this galaxy style. All the colors and see what comes out of it. Okay, for trees. Let's get that in, because once the trees are done, then we just have to focus on the details of the hill, whatever we like. Like maybe a second coat of some greens or some lighter greens up here, some darker down here. And of course, flowers. And we're going to finish up with the hardest part, which is making people, because we know that making people is like the most complicated thing ever, especially silhouette people with clothes on. Black is what I'm going to be using. I'm using my medium flat again, so I'm going to go pretty close for the trees. So let's focus on that. I'm going to use black paint, medium brush. You can use a detailed brush. You can always switch brushes. Don't force it. A little bit of water. We always want to water it down just a little bit because I find it easier to work with. For me, I'm just going to start. You don't want to accidentally make trees sideways this way. You want to go up and down very straight. So I know the edge of the canvas is like This is the straight line. I'm going to follow that and go up, straight line, shorter one. Let's go a little bit taller for fun. Shorter one here, maybe a little bit of a gap, a bit taller, shorter, and then really overall, shorter and shorter and shorter, like kind of like little trails because it's farther away. So the way that I did this is I try to keep it simple. I just dabbed with the very tip of my brush, right there, hitting the tip of it, vertical at the top. Press all the way down, get it nice and spongy down the middle. I use the corner, so I tap it right here, lightly tap at the top, press harder. See, I'm pressing harder now. It gets a little bit thicker and wider because when you're pressing harder, you're getting more of the frayed full width of the brush. But when you tap really light, you just get little tiny, almost like dots. Tap that all the way down, right into the middle. See how it's like a super narrow tree? It's still that pointy top. Now all you're doing is extending. There's so many different ways to make trees, but you're just extending straight across or a little bit on an angle down, depending on your preference. And it gets a little bit wider on the way down. Just using the tip of my brush again, keeping this pretty much alone, just starting a little bit lower, starting to extend. And I'm going over the green just a little bit because the green is going to overlap my trees. So extend. Overlap the greenery a little bit when you get down there. There we go. There's one tree. All right, so let's keep going. Let's see if I can show you with the detail brush. I'm going to show you just in case. Detail brush, light little taps up here, little dots. Go side to side, keep it nice and pointy, get a little bit, just press, get a little bit wider, go in through the middle. See, using more of the full width as I do that. You can just extend, lightly tap to extend some of the branches. Trees are very imperfect. Try not to make them so symmetrical. There. So let's do it again with the detailed brush. I haven't gone to the bottom here, but I'll show you how I do that. This one, like little touches, little dots. Press side to side, go right in the middle. Dab, 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 dab. There we go. And then extend. So this is a good technique for smaller trees or smaller canvases if you don't have, you know, a big canvas to work with where you can just afford to use the full width of your brush. Okay, so how I continue when you're doing this technique and you're running out of, it's too small and you can't work with it anymore, just go back to this one, just dab down the middle. This is going to attach, meaning it's not attached, it's just, you know, overlapping. But since it's a silhouette, we don't care about what's overlapping what. It just is. There. Very much like a forest feel. So I'm going to continue. These ones are more of my taller, not really taller trees, but before I get into the really tiny ones. Use the corner up here, lightly tap, or use your small detail brush to do it. Extend some of the ends a little bit wider. Okay. Now I'm going to use my detailed brush for a little bit of the rest of them. Black paint, it's a touch of water as usual. Don't forget to reload pretty often. So if you have a lot of gaps in between, either add another tree or just dab along the bottoms to make them a little bit wider, but don't make a dress out of the bottoms, just make them a little tiny bit wider. There's options here. And just a couple more. So really you're just thinking about making the tops of your trees, slightly overlapping the green. Little dots coming up here. And I think I'm going to leave that. Yeah, done with the trees. Pull this back, see how it's kind of looking. I know the black is still overlapping the green, but that's how it's supposed to be for now. Yeah, and then in just a minute, we'll start putting in the green, layering over top, making sure that we have more texture. And put in some flowers. So I'm excited to see some of our results. If you guys want to post them on our Facebook page, you can go like under groups at Artist Palette Durham region on Facebook, and then go to Artist Palette Acrylic and Drawing, I think is what it's called. Yeah, under groups, you can just post it there. We like to see different interpretations and styles. Now for the greenery, let's just do another little coat, following the same basic kind of thing. I'm not matching the color exactly because that's no fun. We want different colors overall. So if I take a big scoop of my yellow and just mix it a little bit on the side of my previous green, sure. Take a little, see a little dot blue. Give it like a lime yellowy green. Take some of my contaminated white. I don't mind it muddying down my green. I kind of like that. So my yellow was, or sorry, my white was touching, I think it looks like maybe blue or brown, so that's okay. Then all you're doing, this is my large brush, and I said we weren't using it anymore, so I don't really recommend it unless you're super comfortable. But see, you're just doing light little flicks just along the edge here, slightly overlapping some of this black. Just along the side, not going all the way down, just up here. Here's the thing. When you're going close to your pathway, yes, it's good to overlap. Just overlap a little bit because it naturally would. Just flicking it upwards. You can leave some gaps. It's not anything perfect whatsoever. I like showing some gaps to show the different layerings in between. Bring it down just a smidge and then stop. Let it wash this off. Just wiping off my brush. And before we continue, let's add on our pathway. If you want to add a little bit more oomph into it, so just something to give it more depth as well, if you like going above and beyond. I'm going to switch back to my medium. So into our same brown, I'm just adding another little piece size of black onto like half of it, so it's almost black looking. Follow it. See, thicker down here, follow it up, and then keep it thinner. Have like little dabs up there, but mostly at the bottom. This is where a lot of the darkness would be. You could just keep it more simple like that. Alternatively, you could just go back to your lighter brown and add a touch more white or something. Maybe a bit more yellow and white, because yellow is more of a yellowy brown if you like that muddied look. This one's less muddied, it's more of like a reddish brown. But anyway, you can have some of that put in there. And I just left it more of a basic dark brown like what I originally started with, kind of more at the bottom, so it's not as bright down there. You just add in more yellow and red, touch of black, similar to what we started with. But overall, it's kind of your preference. You can do short little lines as you go up to give it more of a very textured, uneven type of look. And as I continue, we can go back to some of our darker greens. So I don't mind taking contaminated colors. You can see I just took some contaminated yellow over here, starting into this section again, but taking a little more blue this time with my yellow. So it wasn't a dot of blue like we did up here for the lime yellow green. It's more of an actual green, and it's slightly muddied. You can add a dot of black if you like to get that color too. Just around the middle, just layer it. Like little, start from the bottom, just kind of flick it upwards. So just press and flick it up. You can break up some of this lime yellow stuff if you want. Cover a little bit of the trees again. And take some more blue this time. And yellow, no more white. So this is going to naturally just kind of flick on top of my my hill. And just go right over top of the black, flick it upwards. And then of course add in a little scoop of black to get it back to that nice dark color. and follow some of it along the pathway. Yeah. You can break up some of your color. So when you go into some of the just very little bits, not too much paint, it breaks up, it adds a little bit more shadow in between some of the layerings. And I just wash that off. A little bit closer. See all that texture, all those little lines, and it comes together when you pull it back and take a look at it from like dark to light. And for this next part, we can add flowers before we start the silhouette of the person and the child. In terms of flowers, I did pretty much different colors that I didn't normally use in my sky. So oranges and with some like bluey indigo purples. I felt like that was a good complement. You can do pinks. You can opt out on flowers. You can do just more subtle ones. With my medium flat, let's just start with some orange because orange is not really a color I mixed yet. Make sure you take clean yellow, so not, or if you have a premixed orange, great. And so that's a nice scoop of that. Then very small amount of red. And look at that, you got orange. More red if you want it more red coral, which is also a nice color. You can add a touch of white if you like it even brighter. So just add like a small pea size or something of white. And what I'm doing is I'm just using the corner of my brush. I'm just kind of lightly pressing and flicking. Depending on what kind of flowers you want to do, you can do like tulips because tulips are quite nice. And like little dots up here because it's far away. You're not going to see too much of the detail. And down here, I am being generous. I'm taking like a little full width of my brush type of swoop to give it more of like a bigger look. Taking a little bit more. So sometimes I do like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then as I get further back, not much at all, just like little dots. You're probably wondering, what is the 1, 2, 3? It just kind of resembles petals, you know, 1, 2, 3, kind of like a one's on the side, one's going up, one's on the side, but not all exactly the same. I made sure to put in some indigo, purpley indigo. So I just wash it off, blue and red. I took about close to equal parts, just a touch more of the red, but it still looks quite dark indigo. Just a little pea size of white again. See, very bluey in color. And let's see, kind of went around these flowers. You can add a little bit of color in with the purple. But yeah, similar type of thing. think I'll add, there we go. If I add a little bit of white, you can always, instead of having them all dark, you can just do some lighter versions. They're just like good little touches. I didn't do anything fancy. If you're thinking I did something fancy, I really didn't. I just hope for the best with kind of like comma flicks. Maybe some just plain kind of light blue. I didn't wash off my brush, by the way, so I just take like a light blue, experiment with that. I think it's a nice little touch here. Anyway, so you can have fun with, yeah, your flowers, what you feel like doing. A little bit more over here. More purple. Kind of filled it up quite a bit. And some little white dots up here for the highlights of some of the flowers hitting the light. But when in doubt, you can also just go back to some greens to cover some of your flowers so it's not too much like you've dotted all over the place. If I go back to some of my green, and I just slightly dab, it just mutes it even more, but it's still subtly there. Whatever green you want to go back to. So if you're going back to dark green in this area, you can have it layer over top a little. If you're looking for coral, it's mostly kind of like equal parts red and yellow, maybe a little touch more of the red. It's more of like a coral. You can add a touch of white. So it's almost on the brink of pink. Nice little pop of color. Anyways, there. Oops. All right, so time for the people. And you can practice on a piece of paper, on a palette. You can draw with a pencil first. I'm just going to go for it because that's what I do. Let's go much closer. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to make some people here. So the key is start with one person, which of course you want to start with the parent if you're doing a parent. And then you place the child on top. We're not going to do it all together because it's going to confuse you big time. I'm going for it with black. Grab a pencil, practice on something else. I would say grab a pencil though. And fill it in when you are happy. And it looks like it's kind of matching in terms of proportions, how you like it. So a little bit of water, some black when you're ready to fill it in. But for basic shapes of everything, when I do this, I want to imagine that they're not standing on the very top of the hill because then they'd have to be so small. I want them big enough that it's like, you know, not too big, not too small. If they're down here, you have a lot of detail to make up for. So this is a safe spot. Not at the top, a little bit down. It's like before it starts getting really wide, it's like this area is good. Okay, so since this is where I want to place it, I'm going to start more with the upper part, like the head and into the top part of the body, because if you need to, you can stretch legs lower instead of having to, do other things, make up for it in different ways that you don't want to do. So if you start with legs and then you keep going up, you could end up with some weird proportions. So when I look at mine, I'm going, okay, so I have most of the top part of my body kind of in this area, and then it's coming down and reaching right around here. So for the sake of starting it, we're going to start with the top of the head for the parent. I'm going to start with just like an oval shape. That's our heads. We got oval shapes, not circles. And, we can account for hair later, but you don't really see the hair on the parent, so don't even bother. And I know that proportions are not going to be, it's going to be hard to explain because we all have different size canvases. And actually, I think I went a little bit bigger here. That's okay. So this is pretty small. We have a little bit of a neck that we want to make. So just put a short line, nothing giraffe-like. Very short little line. Kind of looks like a hot air balloon right now. So if you want to stop right there, there you go. Make some hot air balloons, some lanterns. All right, now for the next part. I am doing more of a masculine look. Okay, so I'm doing more of a masculine look because we mostly do women in our paintings, and it's time to change it up a little. So more of a wide shoulder. They're generally, men are not slender up here. They're generally more wider. It's just the way it is. And see, it just comes, we're not going too wide out, but it just comes a little bit more of like a straight line. Start with that. And I'm just going to pull this down from the edge. We're just going to pull that down a little bit more narrow. They have an A-frame for the most part. It's like a triangle in a way. We don't want to go too short. I find they have pretty long upper torsos. I'm going to fill this in as I go so it starts coming together. Definitely make this bigger. But you know what? You can see it a lot better anyways. And okay, so this person's wearing a jacket, which we're just going to get to in a little bit. But now that we're kind of reaching more of the body, like the tailbone area. In terms of legs, the good thing is that your legs are against the green. You can shape it better with the green to your liking. From the sides, so it's not like a point. We're not doing like a pointy triangle, but it does look like a kind of like a triangle. For the first leg, let's just bring it down. So since they're wearing pants, I know it's awkward, but it's just the way it is. You're going to bring it down, kind of start with a straight line first. This is going to be the leg that's behind the one that's leading, which is, as you can tell, this one. Start with a straight line, and we all have a little bit of a wider thigh. So we're just going to press, get it a little bit wider as we go up. So this one's almost like it's fully extended. When you're walking, the leg behind, when you're going up a hill, it's usually fully extended in some sort of way. More of a straight, full extension line. The one that's leading, yeah, it's bent, but we're not going to bend it out sideways. It's bent, but it's also still straight at the same time, because the way that we're looking at it, it doesn't have that full bend. So to start, we're going to bring this down. See how these two legs are like kind of touching each other for now. Usually that happens at the top. Your thighs don't, they're kind of more closer together. So this kind of slightly comes out just a little bit. Okay, just a little bit more like that. So it's almost like you're going to bend at the knee, and then it just kind of comes down inwards just a little bit closer to this leg. It doesn't come as far down as this one. But we want to get our length proper and in proportion to the body. I'm going to bring this down a little bit more, make this a little bit thicker. So it's just coming a little bit closer together. He's wearing pants also, so a bit more baggy. We don't want stick little lines. And I'm actually, for the sake of not going too giant here, because I went a lot bigger overall, I am going to just trim up the top a little bit so we don't have giant people coming all the way down here. So just a smaller head, so not that big. Here we go. Okay, so back to my black that I was using. So the gaps in here, we don't have wide gaps. I am making it a little bit closer together. So if anything, they should be a bit closer together, not coming wider out. So a little bit more filled in here. Don't worry about the fill in between. We're going to bring up the pant leg with a highlight afterwards. So it's going to look kind of a bit awkward until we get to that part. So for the kind of like a shoe, you know what? You know the bottom of pant legs, they have like little creasings. You can put a couple little creasings down here and just a little sort of oval shaped at the bottom. And a little bit of like a side oval shape for a bit of a foot coming up this way in that area. And to give it more of a jacket feel, because this kind of, it's sort of like, you know, at nighttime it's a bit cooler, we're putting on a jacket. It's going to stick out. Depending, if you have it down here, you're wearing a trench coat at that point. It's where you can imagine, where you can envision the butt. Okay, so that's all you have to do. Just envision where you think that is placed. And we're just going to go somewhere around there. It can cover it, it can go above it. I like to go somewhere in between that area. And just more of a comfortable fit was what generally people wear, I guess. Just a little bit of like a sticking out part. See, that's like a little bit of a wider sticking out part there. Let's go a tiny bit more. And then it just kind of comes a little bit more straight up because it's not hugging the body perfectly. It's got more of a straight up and down look to it. And this is where we get into more of the arms. So from the shoulder, I'm not extending it anymore. I'm just imagining if he were to be holding the child that's sitting on top. Usually you're holding in pretty close, you're holding the legs in front. So this is just coming out a little bit, put down, that, and then just bring it in. And a little bit on the other side. So from the shoulder, a little bit more of a bulge, and bringing it in. Now you can imagine, like, okay, maybe you want to make the legs a little bit thicker overall. Pretty close, and don't worry, we're going to highlight it. So the pants are wider than the feet. Don't forget to bulge that out a little bit at the bottom for a pant leg and keep it more oval shaped, narrow where the feet are. There we go. Okay, so here we go with the child on top. Okay, this person, you can have it wearing a hood. That's details you can add later. The child is now covering the entire neck. Of course, right? Because, sitting just wrapped around this area. So we have to, in a way, you're not going as wide as the shoulders. They're pretty, they're small little people. We want to just bring that so it looks like this area is covered. So it's almost like this person has a really super thick neck. Yeah, we're going to, again, they're covering the head. We're not supposed to really see too much detail of the head. So from here, you have the head ending here, and the child is more, there's like a head coming on top right there. So it's like the head's ending here. We're going to go a little bit higher. We're going to make a small little circle. This child is wearing a hat. We did a small little kind of circle shape. And for the hat, just going to put a little point at the top. Just do a little bump, it's wrapping around the head, tiny little bump. Okay, now we do need to show a bit of a neck for the child. So it's coming down from just the middle. Just a short little line again, but it's not a super thin line because we don't have twigs for necks, but yeah, the neck there. Okay, and when we're doing more of the upper body, they're very delicate people. It's not too square in a way like we did down here. They have soft features as they grow. So this is more of like a short little line. This is the direction of the shoulders of where they're going. So I've decided it's he is pointing to the moon. So if you think about it, he's adjusting his position so that his shoulder is raised up a little bit and coming down on the other side so that he's relaxing the arm on the other side. So just like a kind of like almost like a diagonal line. So this is going up, and I'm just extending it. So I'm going to extend, and extend a little bit more. Just start with a thin line, press a little bit more as you get into the body. And we have slight bends in our arms, by the way, so it's not the most perfect straight line, but you can get away with making it just kind of perfectly straight. Okay, we'll worry about additional features in a bit. A little bit of water, more paint. So now that's going into more of the armpit, and basically the rest of the body, it's kind of just wrapping and meeting with almost towards the edge of the shoulder here. Okay, just going to fill that in. And we have to do the other side. So I've decided he's kind of more like holding the head or the side. So I'm going to put on this side to give him more of a relaxed arm look. Bring that down just a little bit. So it's like almost like it's just sticking out like this in a way that we've done with the parent at the bottom. It's almost like you're making a very soft, rounded triangle or angle obtuse shape. So you see that? It's like a sideways triangle. So we can afford to make this arm a tiny bit thicker, just depending on how thin this is looking. Just a little bit thicker. Great, it's coming together. And one tiny little thing before we're going to start highlighting, just to pop out the shape a little bit better. If you can just take a light gray, so white with a touch of black. So see it like a light gray. What you can do is just on that inner part of that, so like the tip of where that triangle is, where it's kind of the arm is wrapping around. I just put that right in there. So it looks like it's not all just black filled in. It's like a little gap in between the arm. And I did highlight more of like the tip of the hat, the top of the hat. I want to do the hand in just a little bit, but also the side of the body. So inside the black, I just very lightly traced around what would be hitting the light here, which is the side of the jacket coming up in front, see, covering the arm. So the arm is more outside of it. And do the other side, so it's like you have a bit of an armpit in a way. And follow up pant leg. Same with a little bit just up the middle of in between the legs. Just a little bit up here. Just follow that. Just kind of go up a little bit. You don't need to touch the top. See, this is just a light gray, and I think it adds so much more depth and dimension. More detail You know, the kid a little bit on the side as well. And I'm going to go back to my black. And what I want to do is just make a bit more detail into the hands, but don't force it if you're like, okay, this is good for me. I don't want to make any mistakes or take any chances. Back to the black, touch of water. I'm doing a bit of a hand. So again, don't like perfectly thin lines overall. I'm just going to do a little bit of a point and a little kind of bulge. So you're trying to imagine on the tip of the, you don't need to extend it out further if it's already long enough. You want to stay within the line. Don't extend it further. You can just cover the end of the line. Just do a little bit of like a rounded oval and a little line sticking out to represent a finger. So here, a little bit closer, a bit more detail. You can do more highlights to your liking. So I like to finish up with kind of like a shadowy grass behind because the light's kind of more coming over here. So just diagonally coming this way so you can see it right there. You can use your medium brush. I use the same kind of dark green. So blue, touch of yellow, a little dot of black. So you have a muddied down dark green. And then just along the bottom, it's a nice distraction. You're lightly covering some of the shoes. And just put in some flicks going off to the side to darken this area. Just right there. Pull this back. See how it's looking. Yeah. Okay, pretty cool. So that's pretty much the last step. Unless you feel like you need to do more touch-ups. Just touching up on, there's a white dot there. You're going to touch up on your stars more. Some more stuff on the grass maybe. You can sign your painting whenever you feel like you're done. And show your results on our Facebook page. Go under the groups, Artist Palette Durham region. Share your results. We'd like to see them. Maybe you'll paint with me again. We have lots on our website, artistpaletedurham.com. Free and paid ones that you can do on Zoom. So you can check it out on the website, see what else is coming up. We book pretty far ahead too. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for painting with me. This was fun. This was, one of my originals that I found really fun to do. And hopefully you did too. not too bad. I know this is very complicated, but overall, when you got your practice in, you do it with a pencil first, I think it makes more sense. Bye, everyone.